think in terms of plurals or not plurals, or don't have plurals. And so they made it simple by just calling it the principle of creation.
It could be a linguistic thing, yeah. Anyone else? What about your group, Alan?
We decided on an answer, but we figured that you would probably find issue with it anyways. So basically, we decided to use your answer for last week on what a principle even is, as in it's an underlying law. And we figured that, well, the divine principle outlines a whole bunch of different laws or even different higher level principles in its texts. But the principle as a whole, the entire book is just the underlying rule of the universe.
Yeah, I mean, we're just dealing with this chapter. So if you were going to identify, I mean, just generally, if people are going to identify certain principles, what principles would you identify in the principle of creation?
So
anybody, Alan, you can answer if you like.
Yeah, I would say what the principle of creation posits, so stuff like the three object purpose, the four position foundation, the existence of God, universal prime energy, give and take relationships, so on and so forth. Those kinds of things would be.
Yeah, I think something more deeper. Go ahead, Daniel.
Well, I don't know if it's deeper, but I mean, our purpose for creation. Why we came. It really does go into that God not being able to be alone. So, and not happy alone. Can be alone, but not able to find joy alone. Need an object. We are the object. How we connect to the world, and then all these things that Alan brought up. But basically, yeah.
Yeah. So underneath that, then God created in his image and likeness, right, according to Genesis 1:27. And so the first principle, you might say, is the principle of resemblance. So every creation resembles the creator. That's the principle, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a principle that any creation reflects the nature of the creator. So the principle doesn't identify it this way, according to, but you could go through it and identify certain principles. If the first principle in the book is the principle of resemblance, that every creation reflects the nature of the creator or incarnates part of the nature of the creator, whatever terminology you want to use, what would be the second one, you think?
Dual characteristics. Everything coming in pairs. You have from the smallest electrons and atoms and things to.
Yeah, I think that would still come under resemblance because that's resembling the nature of the creator, right?
Oh, okay.
Could you say giving for the sake of love, giving for the sake of love and happiness, giving to others?
Yeah, I think the next principle would be the principle of relationship, right? Give and take action.
Mm-hmm.
Love and beauty.
There's a principle of relationship. That's section 2, when it talks about universal prime energy and force. So it used to be, we talked, probably John and Jackie, when you joined, it was universal prime force, right?
Right. Yeah. Or universal
and then force. It changed to universal prime energy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Universal prime force.
Yeah. So do any of you guys study physics? Or like physics? What do you study in university, Alan? No? All right. You're like me. Mirik, you like physics? Yeah? Do you know the difference between force and energy? You have to unmute yourself if you're going to say something. because it talks about that if you actually read that section, right?
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah. I mean, a force is, you know, the push and pull on an object, right? It's when things interact with each other, it creates a force. The force is sort of on each object. When there are two objects, there's an interaction, then there's a force pushes or pulls. Whereas energy is the capacity to do work, I think, in physics. And what I remember, of course, from physics was potential energy. So I think the reason they chose energy was because of the potential. Universal prime energy is kind of, how would you define universal prime energy? Can you understand this at all? Is this just like Chinese, Natalia? Justin, you guys do physics out there in the countryside, or you just draw pictures of flowers? Look at the lovely flowers behind Natalia. Look at the beautiful clothes behind Justin. This is the difference between a boy's world and a girl's world.
I think energy is can be very subtle and quiet, and but force is, it can be anything, like any type of energy, but force is more.
I think, reference to, I think force has direction. Energy does not imply any direction. You know, it's just energy. But force, on the other hand, it has direction to wherever it's going. Would you say that's more, does that sound okay?
Yeah, I think in physics, definitely force is, you know, it's a push and pull between two objects. It you know, moves the objects, and when there's no relationship between the objects, the force disappears. So give and take action is a force. But my question is, how would anyone define this universal prime energy that exists within God? I mean, how do you understand this? Or doesn't matter? You just read it and that's okay.
Justin and I were wondering if like another way that you could define universal prime energy is love, because it's something that creates the basis, or creates, yeah, the basis for give and take, right? So could it be love?
Yeah, I think it and I always call it sort of spiritual energy. It's a spiritual energy that exists within God. Did anyone study unification thought?
I read it, but it's very difficult for me.
Right.
Yeah.
When you study, if you study unification thought and you look in the theory of original image, which is looking at God, there've been, I don't know if it's, I think that's still the case. There've been new editions of the book that I didn't buy, so my edition's not the most recent one. But then it goes into much more detail about, you know, inner Hyung Song, inner Sung Song, outer Sung Song, inner Hyung Song, outer Hyung, you know, the Korean terminology. And through that, you can get an understanding of how it's possible that this energy is created within God. So universal prime energy is an energy that exists within God, as it were, in potential. As you can have potential energy, I think. And because God is pure spirit, therefore it's a spiritual energy. And yes, when it then acts, yes, it would be, because God is a God of heart. Therefore, what Natalia said, that actually it's a sort of love energy. That's a really good insight, I think.
And also because love and the heart of God is so compelling, like it had to come into existence because it goodness and love are so compelling that it had to come into existence. Because I heard that somewhere. That really struck with me.
Yeah, is that actually, if you read there's a used to be a green book, right? Level 4.
Mm-hmm.
And it talked about that God's heart was such that it had to create.
Mm-hmm.
God had to create because of the nature of God's heart.
Yeah.
Would you say that then that God is universal prime energy?
God is universal prime energy. Or universal prime energy exists within God.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you say God is, then that is the nature of God. Whereas, by principle, God is internal character, external form, yang and yin. And also God is heart. So, so I think you have to say it exists within God. And it's the energy, as it were, it's the energetic element of God, anyway, that allows creation to exist. So what we don't know, so science knows, you guys know about the Big Bang, right? Woojin's going to go to sleep if we talk about the Big Bang. She doesn't care about it at all. No. So who cares about the Big Bang? Anybody? Some people. Jeremy likes science a little bit. Alan was, as far as physics went, he put up his finger a little bit, right? So we know about the creation of the world, right, back to the point 0.001 to the minus 36th of a second. And this we call the Big Bang. What we don't know is what is before that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by definition, God creates time and space.
Right.
And by definition, God exists before time and space.
Right.
Because God created time and space. So it gets very complicated. But seems to me it's like E equals MC squared, right? You'll know E equals MC squared. So we know how energy is equals matter times a constant squared, and the constant is the speed of light. And we know how energy turns into matter. And we can turn matter back into energy. We can burn wood. We just don't know where it comes from. Right?
Yes.
So I think, prior to the Big Bang, that there's some process in which God's spiritual energy becomes physical energy. But that's just my theory. I'm not a scientist. Anyway. Yeah, Daniel.
On that note, like I was listening to Andy Compton's lectures online a while ago, and he talked about God having a physical body, probably from what we've gathered, maybe of energy or something, existing outside time and space. But I don't know. It's sounded very interesting, so I was kind of wondering what your thoughts are on that.
It's gotta be Jupiter.
Being like, I mean, we
So
know.
God has an actual,
Well, body as in it's different.
a spiritual existence.
Maybe.
That's what the Mormons believe. The Mormons believe when you go to spirit world, you'll be able to meet Mother and Father God. They also believe in male and female deity.
Oh.
But Mormons are very interesting. They're very close. They also, in their highest level of temple, I'm not quite sure what they call it, they actually have a throne for the Christ, the returning Christ that's facing to the east. It's in the east. It faces east.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I've always thought that somehow the prophet needs to receive a revelation just to join us. And then a lot of our problems are solved because they're good at business too. They got a lot of money. Unificationists think they're good at business, but they're hopeless. They're just spiritual people on the whole.
I mean, we got the New Yorker.
Oh, that was a great buy. That was a great buy, but you don't know the history of the money there. How much money has gone in.
In response to, sorry.
You go ahead, Alan.
Okay. In response to Daniel, if I remember correctly, your father once spoke about this and he said, even in the spirit world, you can't meet God. He exists on something entirely different. It's not the spirit world or the physical world. It's something else.
Actually, Father said spirit world is like the womb of God.
Interesting.
One speech. Father said a lot of things. But I always thought it's a nice way of thinking about it, the womb of God. And if you read the, when we were getting, at the time through John mentioned San-Hun Lee, that he met him, who was the originator of victory over communism and unification thought. And when he had his communications from the spirit world, at the same time, there was a communication from St. Augustine, right? If you read it, it's rather boring, but it does talk about the relationship between God and Father being like two beams of light coming up out of the earth, or, out of whatever in the spirit world, and that they're dancing together. The beams of light intertwine. And the one is Father and one is God. So God has the ability to take different forms, but yes, you won't be able to see God, but you'll experience God. That's the point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if indeed spirit world is like the womb of God, we will know we're in that womb.
Yeah.
One of our problems is we don't exactly know what we experience in the womb of our mother, right? What our sensitivities are. Certainly a child in the womb knows the voice of the parents. Okay. So let's move on. We won't finish. Does the principle prove the existence of God? What do you think? Yes or no? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
I think so, yes.
Personally, I think that this is a very easy answer. No, it does not.
Really?
No.
What does it do, Alan? Or Jeremy, you want to answer for your brother? Show you're smarter than him? I mean, no.
You can try.
That I think it's better than anything else we've got. It's more clear than anything else.
Jackie, how do you prove the existence of God?
How do you prove it? Just there's nothing better than loving people, being able to love others. So I guess.
I think I think the principle, to me, it does prove the existence of God, because it solved all the problems, gave all the answers to all the entire human existence from beginning, why we're here, where we come from, where we're going after, and what happened to the world ever since the beginning of the creation, and why we have so much difficulty, why we're not happy, how can we be happy? And, as the individual or as a family, as a nation, it gives answer to solve all those things. And then therefore it in that sense, and therefore, yes, if there is a God, then when we look at our own family history, our individual history, and the world's history, our national history, then it definitely have shown that. But of course, we have to go into the spirit world as well. And anyway, I definitely 100%, because I felt the principle in my spiritual life. I mean, by that I mean I test the principle. Several part of the principle, True Father said, you can test it. He tested before he taught us, right? Before he knew it was definitely true. Then he taught us. Then I tested, not intentionally to test it, but the way I lived when I first joined the church, I tested, and my goodness, when I go against the principle, when I go towards the principle or unite with the principle completely, I always have blessing comes sooner or later. And when I go against it, the best thing is a chaos, the worst thing is a curse. That's always the case too. That means the principle, it does well and has spiritual worlds behind it. That's what I like to share. That's why to me, it definitely, yes.
So Alan, why did you give the thumbs down? Jeremy, you're going to speak? Did you give thumbs up or thumbs down, Jeremy?
To summarize what we were saying in our group call, while the divine principle is a great source of material and learning, even someone who's like me who likes science more, I can agree that the divine principle is a beautiful piece of work that teaches even the greatest principles to like even people like me. We decided that it still makes assumptions on the basis of a God existing, and even if that is true or not, we can make great choices in our life thanks to the principle, or that's what I picked up anyways.
Yeah, it assumes the existence of God. It asks you to assume the existence of God, right? Yeah, Daniel.
Yes.
Daniel's reading the
And-
book.
I do
Well,
think.
As you said, it assumes the existence of God, and then it makes good arguments on why God would exist. Like, I mean, reading through it, none of the stuff. Well, if you read through the stuff and it starts making sense, even though it's talking about God, I would say it's making a good argument for the existence of God. Now, does it prove it? Maybe not prove it, but it makes a good argument, I would say.
Yeah.
What do you think, Alan? Alan
Even then, I would argue that it relies on way too many assumptions. Like, I love the DP, and because I believe in these assumptions, I assume that these assumptions are true. But for someone who did not take them to be true, someone who straight up does not believe in the spirit world, everything in the principle of creation does not make sense whatsoever. If someone believes, okay, well, the universe just kind of exists and it was not created, just as God was not created, the universe was not created. If someone believes that, then they'll just reject everything in the principle of creation. So for example, things like the four-position foundation, okay, why is this the case? The DP states that it is the case, but it doesn't provide very much for what the heck it is in the first place. It merely states that it is. So there are so many assumptions, I feel. And I do think that there is decent evidence for it. And of course, I do have my own reasons for believing it. But ultimately, it's absolutely not a proof of God. There are some very strong points for sure, but I don't think this is one of them. Especially considering that it's also based on the Bible, and it's so heavily based on that. So if you don't take the Bible as true either, then what the heck are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's asking you to make that assumption. So how do you prove the existence of God in your?
Not to sound like a complete and over-the-top skeptic, but any kind of empirical evidence, such as say, okay, well, everyone on Earth asks God to rain fire in one specific place at one specific time in such a way that it absolutely could not possibly be chance, and it happens. I'd say that would be very good to prove. Or not even proof, it would be very strong evidence. We can't really prove anything now, can we?
Yeah. Anyone? Jackie kind of said it, but when she spoke before, no, you have to experience yourself. You have to have an experience with God yourself. This is the big challenge, I think, for you young people. My experience giving seminars, workshops to the quote unquote second generation, and when I asked who's had an experience with God, no hands went up. So I recently read a little testimony about the first members in England. And do you know Bob Duffy in Montreal? So Bob Duffy was the first young man who joined the church in England. And basically he met a lady in a Wimpy bar, which is a terrible place. I don't know why he went into one of those. Most awful food and drink. But anyway, he was there and somebody witnessed to him. And he went and he listened to the principal. And the very first member in England, who was actually a lady, South African lady, told him, go away and pray for 3 days. And he came back. He actually came back on New Year's Eve. So he heard the principal just after Christmas, right? And he came back and they sang songs and he played guitar. So they're very happy he was there. And they prayed. And while he was praying, he saw Father there praying and crying with them. So he had an experience with spirit world, and that convinced him for his entire life, that one experience. So again, with the spirit world, you have to have some experience that you say, yeah, this is real and this is beyond everything. So that's the real challenge, right? Is to have that experience. Anyway, let's go on, shall we? Anyone, what's the most important part of the principle of creation to each person? I don't know, what sort of time have we got here, Sash? We're supposed to do an hour and a half? I mean, whenever people need to go, just go. But Xiu Ching, you didn't say anything. You're so quiet. What's the most important part of the principle of creation to you? There's no right or wrong answer. It's just what's most significant to you. What really grabs you?
Yeah, I think the dual characteristic of God. I was so quiet because I don't speak either English, either French.
On parle pas français ici.
No,
they don't speak French either, I don't think. Who speaks French?
Yeah, I don't speak either language. So.
Oh, your English is fine. Where are you living?
I'm from Quebec.
Are you in Quebec?
Yes.
In Montreal?
No, far away from Montreal.
Oh.
I think two and a half hours from Montreal.
Yeah, Quebec is so huge.
To the east.
Yeah. My wife is from Repentigny, so almost in Montreal.
Ah, okay, Repentigny. Ah, your wife is a French. Okay.
Yes, my wife is.
Donc, vous parlez français.
Elle parle français.
Vous parlez français aussi.
Elle n'a jamais parlé français avec moi. So now our grandson goes to French immersion school, so now we speak a bit.
Ah, but you speak very well, better than me.
Anyway, so dual characteristics really struck. What about anyone else? Anyone else? What is there any part of it that's really important to you, Justin or Mirik? You young men, Queenam? Anything? What grabs you? Sorry?
The rules of the principle, like give and take action, or
yeah.
Oh, as a principle tree? Yeah, like yeah, give and take action, universal prime energy. Those, I don't know, formula things.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever you have a problem, you can think, how's my give and take, right?
Right.
Got a problem with somebody, how's my give and take?
I like that you mentioned about principle of resemblance and principle of relationship. They're both R's, right? Relationship and resemblance, so it's easy to remember. And I like that.
And there's another really, for me, really big one is the principle of responsibility, right?
Oh, yeah.
So for me, the most important part of creation is human responsibility.
Yeah.
How about Wu Jin? What's the most important part of creation to you? You got anything that really grabs you?
Oh, it's just the quality of the dual characteristics of God. That's just what sticks in them, I guess.
I'll be late. Yeah. Nobody, Irene, you're not going to go, and nobody loves the three blessings?
Yeah.
That's because that's because none of you have children. Right? All you young ones. No? Right? Do you find the three blessings inspiring, Natalia? You looking forward to Mr. Natalia? Oh, we shouldn't talk about that, right? I remember I talked one time to a second gen workshop and I said, so-and-so, one young lady I really liked, she imagined then she's blessed to Majumbo. And Majumbo is so dark that at night you can just see his eyes and his teeth. She never spoke to me again.
Oh my gosh.
That was long ago, in the days when Father was still doing this. All righty. But what about Sasha? Sasha, you didn't say anything. What's the most important part of creation to you, principle of creation?
I really like the idea that everything has like a partner and like yin and yang and like internal and external. Yeah, I think it's like really beautiful. It makes the world really like you start looking at the world differently, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask you a question? Like when I read the principle of creation just recently, that this last week, that sorry, I lost my thought. That man is the in relation. Man is in the subject position, and women is in the object position, and man represents the internal nature, and women the external form. And so I always thought that women were more the internal nature, I guess, because of their nurturing ability. But that really struck me, that man was the internal, a subject, like internal, and women was the external form. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, it's kind of like when it talks about the God is the masculine, and then the physical world is the feminine, the object, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's, kind of problem is a problem of our understanding and a linguistic limitation a little bit. And to put you know, it's like drawing the diagrams. You know, you've got God, subject, object, and they're all separated, whereas it's not like that at all. And we know that what's you know, scientifically, what's the difference between man and woman according to chromosomes? Do you guys know? Jeremy, you like science? What's the difference in chromosomes between man and woman? Irene, you don't study this?
I believe the difference was there's 2X chromosomes in females and an XY in males.
Yeah, so we've got something like, what is it, 23 or 24 pairs of chromosomes?
23.
23, and the last one is different. So 22 are the same. And then the last one is XX and one's XY, right? Which one is which? I should check. I never remember. I don't know.
I think females is XX and males are XY.
All right. So
I
the
think.
females are saying no, the men are saying yes. Yeah. Hi, Nusaba. Where are you? Say
Hi.
hello. Say hello.
Hi.
We're just looking at some questions in the chat. So open up your chat, love.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And scroll to the top of the chat. Okay. All righty. And we need to keep going. So my next one is, sorry, did that answer your question, Jackie? You had a question, right?
Yeah, I guess because women are more their external form, you see them more clearly, like their nature in externally.
Yeah.
But man is more internal, so I guess because of the women have more beauty, that they're seen more. People are attracted to beauty, right? But man is more internal, so it balances.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I get the sense that it's not. It's you know, it may come out a little bit of Korean culture too. I don't know. Because you know, this whole subject object is totally flexible, right? Totally interchangeable.
Yeah.
True. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
So
That's, yeah.
you know, who's subject and who's object. I think
Yeah.
you know it's and some of it comes down to biology, right? Give and take action. So sexually, the woman receives the man, she takes the man. So therefore the man is, as it were, the subject, the woman is the object, because the object receives.
Right.
And that. But anyway, the next, all will be, the value of women, all will be revealed in the next question. So what did God use as his model or blueprint when he created man, Adam? Anyone have an idea?
What was the question again?
What did God use as his model or blueprint when he created man, in the sense of male, Adam? Do anyone have an idea? I'm going to put it in chat, okay, what Father wrote. What Father said.
What you need to know.
So actually, you see it?
Yeah.
What?
Based on woman as the model, created man based on woman.
So, therefore, to say that woman is external and man's internal, you know, not sure that's God's viewpoint, right?
Yeah.
So how do you know? How do you know this is true? According to the Bible or anything? what do we say about the creation? When you look at the process of creation, right? So you look at the, you go towards the end of the principle of creation.
If I may hazard a guess, then
Yeah.
I think where you're going with this is that perhaps that God only said that the creation was good after he created woman.
Very good, didn't he? I mean, what's God's last creation?
Woman.
Right. Oh, hi, Celine Solongo. Wow. News I buy, you brought friends. They're coming. Hi, Celine Solongo.
Hi, how are you? I'm so sorry.
Don't worry.
I'm late. I'm so
Don't worry.
sorry.
Just go into the chat, okay?
Okay.
Open up your chat. Where are you, Solongo?
Do you mean where do I live?
Yes.
Oh, I live in Virginia. Yeah.
All righty. Welcome.
Thank you.
I asked a few questions, and one at the beginning of the chat, you'll see there are a few questions, and we divided up into groups and we looked at some answers. And then at the bottom, we're looking at what did God use as his model or blueprint when he created man, Adam. And if you go to the bottom of the chat, you'll read what Father said. Thus, what you need to know here is that God created man based on woman as the model. So this is actually.
I'm sorry.
So actually, I just read this. Somebody showed me this just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And very interestingly, in the same speech said, Father, this was a speech in 2004. Father said, now I'm 65 years old and I have to finish everything very quickly by the time I'm 92, and then I can depart. And indeed, of course, Father departed when he was 92. He was talking Korean age, but he said, then I'm ready to go, leave you.
Wow.
Yeah, I never read that before. It was in the same speech.
Wow. Oh.
So that's very, quite remarkable.
Yeah.
But anyway, for you ladies, this is, and this relates to this question about what problem does the explanation of yang and yin solve in our world, male and female? What?
Yeah.
What's the fundamental problem in our world?
Homosexuality. It solves that problem.
I think it's greediness.
Greediness.
Yes.
Greed. Yes. Greed.
If I remember correctly, it's simply the misuse of love. Either that or excessive selfishness.
Yeah, I mean, but particularly what type of love, Alan?
Conjugal or sexual.
Yeah, it's the Adam Eve thing. So the number one problem is Adam and Eve. What's number two problem?
Cain and Abel.
Cain and Abel, exactly. So the first problem is between male and female. And the second problem is the problem of, well, in this case, fratricide, brothers killing brothers, but problem of murder, you might say. So the spiritual murder is rape, and then physical murder. One flows from the other. So then this is one thing I think, and coming out of that, you have this horrific history of men and women, right? So Fortunately, you live in the very best moment to be a woman. And it's still not very good, right?
Mhm.
There's still the glass ceiling in boardrooms across North America. But what do you think? I mean, does the principle solve the problem of the male-female problem? Because principle is supposed to solve problems. As I explained last week, you're supposed to teach us about our existence and about relationships. Why is that important? Because by doing that, we can solve actual problems in life. And this is fundamental problem. So can we do that? So what's the problem between men and women in history?
Misuse of love.
Misuse of love, but and what does that lead to in the whole? So even in the principle, when we talk about subject object, how do people misinterpret that?
The reverse the thing, I think. Subject and object. I don't.
So they think there's different value, right?
Hmm.
So the problem in history is men have assumed women are inferior, right? So if you're a woman and you live in Saudi Arabia, you live under certain types of Islamic rule, what's your position?
Lower than men.
Yeah, does anybody know?
Housewife.
Yeah, but it's not like it's much worse. Nuzaba, how do you say your name? Nuzaba? We still can't hear you. You're unmuted, but maybe you need to turn on a mic or something. No, still can't hear you. I can't hear you. Oh. Now? No? Yeah, now. Now we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, cool. It's pronounced Nisaiba.
I'm sorry?
Nisaiba?
Nusaiba.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Yeah, they're chattel. They don't have rights, right? They can't go out without permission. They can't get a passport without permission. They can't visit the doctor. They belong to the men. They belong to their father. The father can marry them. They belong to the husband. The husband passes away. They belong to the oldest son. And this was how women were also treated, throughout many parts of the world. In Christianity, it was no different. And this is why, to this day, men and women do the same job, but men get paid more. Men and women have been working in a certain company for the same amount of time, but when you have to fire someone because there isn't enough money, the women get fired first, right? Because of inferiority, this feeling that women are inferior, and the problem in the principle is when we talk about subject object and positive and negative, people get confused. Don't. So equal value.
Yeah.
And if anything, women have greater value.
Right.
Why do women have greater value, do you think? Why were women the last creation?
Because of their nurturing ability, their love, ability to express love to their children, and
They can create children. They can
Yeah.
produce children.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
You wait, you ladies, you can do something men can't do. You can have a child. You can have a child.
Yeah, right.
So this must be the closest thing to
Yeah,
creating as God created.
right.
Because what's God's most precious creation? Why did God do everything? Why did God create?
I think it's for his happiness to have an object. That's why God creating
Yeah, what
human
do we call the object?
partners.
Child, right?
Oh.
Su Ching is God's daughter, right? So
I think son is more valuable also. Is valuable also as a son.
of course you need both.
Yeah.
You need both to tango, we say. Do you know how to dance, Su Ching? You know how to tango?
No, I'm not sorry.
Watch the movie A Scent of a Woman and watch the tango dance. You can just Google it or YouTube, the dance in Scent of a Woman. Scent like smell, SCENT, Scent of a Woman. There's a great tango dance. So you need both, right? Anyway, so this is actually a fantastic quotation here from Father about men and women, right? So I really like that. And I really feel that, you know, that theoretically this really helps solve the problem between men and women. Can. And that's a huge problem to solve.
Right.
So that's what, especially, you know, true parents trying to do. And through the blessing, especially trying to resolve everything, but it's difficult because it's restoration. Okay.
Yeah.
So just that last thing. So how do you apply principle in your daily life, the principle of creation? Anybody to try to use it? You can use it consciously and unconsciously. Otherwise, why do we study it? And when you go to school or university, you study things to learn, right? Because they're useful. You get exams and you need those to pass those exams to move on or whatever it is.
Well, one way I think is to have charts in your home on the wall about ways to be successful in the important daily life activities. You know, to have charts of what really works and to refer to and memorize and as guidelines, like in relationships and in a basic healthy food, kind of at least a week's worth of healthy food and things like that.
Queen, are you just twiddling the stick, or do you want to say something? How you apply the principle in your life? That's a good idea.
Both, I guess.
I'm sorry.
I like to do something while I'm, or I like to not do nothing. Well, I guess the principle of creation helps fulfill the first blessing, individual perfection. So that's something you can use in an everyday environment, even without or having to go through marriage or divorcing.
Yeah.
Or before it, at least.
That's right. So how does it help do that? So when you're trying to study, you're trying to learn, what are you trying to do? What do you need to do?
Act on it.
What does the principle teach us we have to do? If you want to learn something, so you have to study, right? Maybe you don't want to study, you want to eat pizza. You want to go out and buy a pizza, but actually it's more important to study. So what do you have to do?
Let's see, first page of Divine Principle. Follow the original mind and its desires.
Yeah, but the original mind's not so strong. But what do you do by principle?
Pardon?
What do you have to unite?
Mind and body.
Mind and body. There you go. Centered on?
God.
No.
Up
here. What have you got here? And then you got mind and body. Unite, centering on. So obviously it says, first blessing says God, but what is it when you're doing something? It's centered on purpose, right? Somebody said purpose. Jackie, was that you?
Yeah.
Jackie whispered it. She was trying to help you. Heart of a mum. Centered on purpose. Your purpose is to pass the exam or to do well. Our problem is when that purpose isn't strong enough to unite our mind and body, when the desire for pizza is stronger than study. Right?
Right. Yeah.
So you can use the four position foundation. You can think it through. What happens when you have got a problem with someone? You ever have a problem with someone? You ever have a problem, Justin, with those girls in your house? You're surrounded by girls, it seems to me, right? You got mom, dad's probably barely there. Is he there much, Dad?
He has work, but he's here today.
Oh, good.
Yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, the weekend. But you got mom and you got Amelia, you got Natalia, you got Nia, you got grandma, right? You never see grandpa because he's out being a sort of scientific genius. Grandma comes and goes, and then you got Pabina, right? Sometimes you got great grandma, and she's a pistol. So you ever have trouble with those?
Honestly, not too much. No.
They're so nice. What happens when you have trouble with someone? What do you have to think about?
Well, their view. I think what they're going through. So then, yeah. And then if I'm in the wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think about give and take or give and receive. So in Korean, it's give and take. Do you understand why it's give and take rather than give and receive?
No.
Is more accurate?
No.
Just to give an example. So give and then take. Give and receive. What's the difference?
You're reaching out halfway.
Yeah. So you're actively responsible. So there's equal responsibility.
Oh, I see.
Right? Receiving is somewhat passive. Obviously, there's a certain responsibility, but the point about the reason it's that the better translation is give and take is because there's equal responsibility. Right?
Yeah.
So, and subject and object are equally responsible for a relationship going well. So So when we have problems in relationship, we have to think about the quality of our give and take action with that person. So because you can't change the other person, you can only change yourself, right? So you're right, Justin. You have to put yourself in the other person's shoes, try to understand their thinking, be empathetic, all of those things, right? So it's a bit forced, but you can use the principle, four position foundation, give and take, all of those fundamental principles in your daily life. But a lot of it's, it's more instinctive. And of course, your parents are all keen on that second blessing thing. But we don't worry, we won't force that issue. All righty. I don't know. Did anyone have any questions that they came up with themselves that they really wanted to ask? Because maybe we can continue next week, Sasha, because we've got other things, right? There's an event at 8. What time is the event? 8:30 tonight? I don't know.
Oh.
The Rally of Hope.
Oh, I don't know. I was thinking about something else.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, Alan and Jeremy and Queen Um's dad's got an event at 7.
Yeah.
But did you have any questions written down that you wanted to ask? Anybody? Yeah, Justin.
So when Natalia and I were reading before, we had a question about universal prime energy. How does it prompt God's dual characteristics to form a common base? Like, how does that prompt it?
Yeah. I mean, this is the problem with conceptualizing God and trying to use language to explain God, but it's as if God exists in potential, but something has to start motion within God, between God's inner and outer sung song, inner and outer hyung song, according to when we talk about, use those Korean words in the principle, right? When you look at unification thought. But it's like something begins the relationship within God. But it's and that has to be energy, because energy is this force, that allows relationship. So energy allows force to be created, right? According to physics. But it's a good question, and it's, to me, because God is one, right? And it's almost imagining that there's a moment, but of course time didn't exist before God exists, before God was one or God was whole, that there was this relationship between God's internal character and external form. But something has to, it's almost like by principle, something has to allow their relationship, and that is universal prime energy that also exists within God. It allows the relationship between internal character and God's male and female elements. And that's why we draw these diagrams with the yin and yang symbol and put arrows and all these things. But it's to be honest, it's trying to describe the indescribable. And that's always the problem with God. It's like you you try to tell someone you had this deep experience with God, and they'll just say, oh, it was you had a stomach upset, or, it's just a result of neurons in your brain, or whatever it is. Sorry, that's probably not a very, you should ask your Deka, ask your grandpa about that, see what he says.
All right,
and
thank you.
And also, if you do ask him, make sure you got half an hour for the answer.
Yeah.
And
yeah, Jackie.
Stuart, I read that True Father said that whenever you talk about divine principle, or that you should always include the spirit world in. So that's something we didn't talk about yet, but that's a good motivator for people, is to understand the spirit world, what happens after we die.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Just earlier, Nuzaba and Solongo, I meant, and Celine, we can't see your face, but we assume you're there. I said that Father explained that spirit world's like the womb of God. So you know God is there, but you don't actually see. You experience, but you don't see. There isn't a physical. You can see manifestations in light or some other form, but God, in the spirit world, God is still invisible, intangible, but ever present, omnipresent, right? And there. But anyway, we can talk about spirit world next week and go on to the fall, because obviously spirit world and the fall go together. Unless you have some questions, come up with some questions, and then we can go over them next week too. But was this? I mean, is this useful, or you want to do this in a different way, or?
No, very good.
Very good. Yeah.
We like.
Yeah.
You like? Good. I mean, I thought some questions, some answers, some point maybe. I mean, we could also, I could give some presentation about religion and science, but as I'm not a scientist, not really very good. But kind of, I'm interested in whatever you're interested in. But if this is useful like this, we can keep going this sort of way. Maybe Sasha can give us a few more minutes to talk next week, but
Sounds good.
On that
she comes from the background of the czars, the somewhat autocratic czarinas. Maybe her dad has the spirit, the spirit of Catherine the Great with him.
If I remember correctly on that last point, there was a Yum series where we got a certain Dr. Richard Lewis to speak about his takes on our faith and its relation to science. It was very interesting, to say the least. There were some things I agreed with and I thought were very illuminating, some things I disagreed with, and we spoke with him, and it was just a very interesting ride. I do have one of the presentation slides, but I think it would be better if you emailed him and you could ask for all of the slides. I'm sure he still has them. He added a whole bunch of notes and everything, so it's practically a mini essay for all 5. So if you find that interesting, then I can provide the email once I open up.
Richard was my first team leader at 7-day workshop. So we know each other well. He gave up with me after 2 weeks, and they handed me over to a Jewish sister who was completely unintellectual, and she would just rub me on the back.
Actually, I completely forgot his email, but...
Don't worry, I have it. Richard
okay.
and I are old friends. His brother is the guitarist who sings at sometimes in the morning. Peter Lewis is his younger brother. The Liverpool Lads, you know, when he does the Beatles, that's his younger brother, Peter. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's probably good, Sasha, right? 1.5 hours. And if it's useful, then the same time next week. And, you know, if you want to invite some friends, we can have more. But this is great. It's a good number. It's people happy to see you. And we'll begin again next week at 5, Sasha?
Yep, that's perfect.
All right. So
Thank you.
2 o'clock Pacific.
2 o'clock Pacific time.
Okay. Thank you.
We're reading the fall.
Yeah, I think let's go with the fall because Spirit World and the fall. Is there any questions about Spirit World? We can start there, or we just go into the fall.
Yeah.
2
So we
o'clock
should read the fall.
Yeah, but it's good to read the fall.
Yeah.
2 o'clock Pacific time. So is it the same time as now, or?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, what's that? 3 o'clock for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're different.
Yep.
So same time. It's 5 o'clock New York time or Toronto time.
Yeah.
Eastern
So
Standard Time.
Through
EST.
up to 79, yes.
Yeah. Right.
So we'll read the fall before the next lesson.
Yeah. Let's read the fall. It's always good to read the fall.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Depressing as it is, but anyway. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a lovely week.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Apply the
Uncle
principle in your
David.
life. Give and take.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Message. Thank you.
Are you gonna end it?
No, we got Sashinka. So this is okay, Sashinka?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Okay, good. Irene?
Yeah, I like the questions. It like makes
Okay,
you think.
you liked having questions like
Yeah,
that?
I think it like makes
Okay.
you think first and then
Yeah.
think.
I thought maybe if I get ahead of time, I could send them out before. Sasha could get them and send them out when she sends out the reminder or something on Saturday, something like that.
So like while we're reading, we can think about them.
Well, just after you've read, just sometime, whatever.
Yeah. Anything.
Okay. So what about the boys?